to this talk about the mystery centre of the heart. It's really something to contemplate when you consider all of the old mystery centres and how we understood them, or how we even perceive them today, those that are still standing, those that are still visible to the human being. And yet there are those that are invisible, that exist on other planes of consciousness. But today we are asked to develop an entry point that lives in the human heart. Now, to consider how we work with this is quite a detailed process, because we do not start with just entering into the mystery centre. As you can imagine, in the times before and in the times to come, there is a preparation process, a process of which one has to be readied, has to come with the right capacity, the right outfit, the right method. And in our age, that is not done outwardly as it may have been done in the past, with the changing of the outer clothing and bringing on the daily, taking away the daily clothing, the everyday self, and bringing about a garment that represented the reverence and the position and the readiness for the next stage of development. Instead, we now develop a readiness through the activity of separating our everyday self from our eternal or our presence of consciousness. And that's depending on where you are on the path, to what degree you would discern that difference, to put the everyday, workaday self to one side and be fully awake, or as awake as you can be, to the consciousness of self, to the I am being. And so today we start with exercises that allow us to put our everyday self to one side, to take off those daily garments and to step into the state of reverence. And we do this first through what is acknowledged as the portal of death, or the gate of death. Death to what? Not to the body, but to that part of ourself that is just living out of limitation and living out of the constructs of this framework that believes purely in this earthly life and all of those conditions and patterns that have been sculpted and formed and in a way housing our daily experience. So we walk through this gate of death, and again this is to degree. So for some that is a separating ourselves from all of those daily identities, as mother or father, as brother or sister, as son, as male, female, or non-binary, all of those identities that give us a framework that house our consciousness, and in that sense bring a limitation to our being, and a valuable limitation for certain experiences. But when it comes to entering into the mystery centre, we are trying to go beyond that limited framework. One of the deep experiences of really working on this first doorway into this first chamber and really grasping what is necessary here. One of those first experiences is entering into a certain kind of loneliness or isolation. This level of solitude becomes a little more familiar as we walk upon the path. But it's understandable in a way why one has to become familiar with solitude or comfortable with solitude and able to bear a isolation when you start stripping yourself of all of these identities that engage you with the world, with the other, with the family, with the circumstances of your life. And as you take those away, as you slowly put them to one side, and there are various methods that one can do this, from the simplest forms of mindfulness to very complex movements of conscious connection. But even still, every one of us has something to sort of lay to one side. And by degree, we do that before we enter into this gate of death. Of course, when we do cross the threshold into the gate of death through leaving the body, when we are no longer going to live an earthly life, we too have to go through this process on a far greater scale. And in that sense, it's not by degree, it's complete, but it is by degree in the consciousness of which one is able to pass through that transition from living to dying. But in the meditative path, we all learn somewhere to die before we die. And so this first stage, this first portal of going through the gate of death is the necessity before one enters into this mystery center of the heart. And so when we practice the virtues, each time we enter into a virtue which is practiced within the mystery center of the heart, we will go through an exercise that will allow some more than others, because you will experience different exercises affecting you differently, but will allow you to put that everyday self to one side, then to concentrate that consciousness and enter in through your consciousness to that mystery center. Now the energy, in a way, follows the consciousness, and that is why we enter through the third eye, the door of the gate of death, and then to the back of the head and down the spine with consciousness into the center of the heart. Now, often when we think about entering into our heart, we just drop into our heart. But there are cautions about working in this mystery center if we go into that place with our everyday personality. And there are even greater cautions of working in this mystery center if we enter in there with our desire and our passion. And as much as we can have a deep will for the work, we want to distinguish that from a grasping desire to have, to accumulate, to become, versus a real willingness for the transformation. So we begin every virtue with this transition from working in our everyday self into working into the consciousness that we've been able to gather and become aware of. And then we enter into the mystery center of the heart before we begin this gentle and reverent activity of cultivating the virtues. I hope that's helpful. Thank you.